Good evening. Appreciate you leading, Todd. You always pick good songs, really uplifting and focusing. So grateful to be together with you tonight. Is that PowerPoint? There we go. All right. We're going to resume lessons from the life of Jacob tonight. We've been studying it for quite a while on Sunday nights. I took a little bit of a break and planned to come back this week back into Genesis. Didn't plan it too well because I ended up with two of the hardest texts in the Bible on the same day, Sunday morning and Sunday night. Genesis 34 is where we're going to be, and it is not an easy chapter. This is a tragic and appalling scene from the life of Jacob. This hashtag girl dad began trending in 2020 when you remember Kobe Bryant and his 13-year-old daughter were tragically killed in a helicopter accident. And a lot of people gave tributes by posting on social media pictures of dads with their daughters, and they put this hashtag girl dad because Kobe in an interview had used that expression. And it's capturing something of the specialness of the relationship between a dad and a daughter, and really with that, just the preciousness of daughters. Not that they're more precious than sons, but they're precious, and we highly regard them. It's not always that way. It hasn't always been that way. Daughters have not always been regarded as highly as sons, and women have often been demeaned, objectified, and abused in horrifying and disgusting ways. It's appalling, as are the events that unfold in this story about Jacob's only daughter, Dinah. So we're going to look at it tonight. Just want to set the scene for you a little bit and remind you things have kind of changed. We're in a new chapter. Geographically speaking, we're in a new location. Jacob has left where he's been for 20 years with his uncle Laban, and he has returned his family to the land of Canaan, to this place called Shechem. You can see it there near Bethel. He'll be headed there. Haran up at the top, that is where he's been in that region. He's just now moved to Shechem. We learned that in the end of chapter 33, he bought a piece of land there from the sons of Hamor. Biographically, it's a new chapter in his life. He's got a new name, Israel, new home, new horizons, old struggles are behind him. Things appear to be looking up. And then tragedy strikes. Genesis chapter 34, verse 1. Now Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had borne to Jacob, went out to see the women of the land. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor the Hivite, the prince of the land, saw her, he seized her and lay with her and humiliated her. Okay, Dinah here, the only daughter of Jacob. You notice there that she's called the daughter of Leah. There's only one other place in the Bible where a woman is introduced by her mother's name. Seems to be an important detail we're supposed to catch on. So you might just sort of tuck that away. This is the daughter of Leah. Remember, he had multiple wives and children with several women. And so this is the daughter of Leah. Shechem is the son of Hamor the Hivite. Hivites are one of the Canaanite nations. They are wicked and violent, and Hamor is a prince of the land. So he is a leader of the region. This is a family of prominence and power. And so the inciting event in this story is an abuse of power. Shechem saw her. He seized her. Literally in Hebrew, it's he took her and lay with her and humiliated her. And if that sounds familiar, it's familiar language in the book of Genesis. It echoes the earliest of rebellions in Genesis. You remember Eve in chapter 3? She saw and took the fruit. Then you get to chapter 6, another great rebellion. The sons of God saw and took from the daughters of men. It's the language of sinful rebellion. He saw her, he took her. This is an account of forced, it's a forced sexual encounter. It is an appalling violation of a woman's God-given dignity. And we know it instinctively as human beings. There's a universal law written on our heart that tells us that is disgusting. It's wrong. Not just because the Bible tells us it's wrong. We know it in our heart. It's wrong. I want to just say one thing, because when we read about this, not only do we say that's wrong, but we want to think as Christians the biblical ethic about these things. And so I think it's important just to stop right here and say a couple of things that are really clear. We know this, but I think we need to say it repeatedly. Sexual intimacy is for marriage only. Marriage being one man and one woman who give themselves to each other in a covenant, a lifelong covenant, not to be broken by marriage. That's the bounds for that sexual relationship. And further than that, should go without saying, but we're going to say it. A person is never to be taken for one's own pleasure. You don't see and take another person. They are made in the image of God. Two people become one, and that is they give themselves to one another. It's mutual. One does not force, one does not take. Certainly you don't do it forcibly, but Jesus would say you don't even do it in your mind, wouldn't he? You don't even take with your eyes. Any form of seeing and taking another person for our own pleasures to go against the biblical ethic. Now, what Shechem did was inexcusable and appalling. After humiliating her, look at verse 3, says his soul was drawn to Dinah, the daughter of Jacob. He loved the young woman and spoke tenderly to her. So Shechem spoke to his father Hamor, saying, "Get me this girl for my wife." That language in there of soul being drawn, this deep soul attraction, and the language of love and tender speech, it kind of turns your stomach after what he just did, doesn't it? I think it reflects the complexity of the human heart. We've got all kinds of things going on at once. Something we think in our heart is love, and then we can act it out in ways that are the very opposite of love. Some people think that maybe he's trying to convince her that this is love. Let me tell you, that's not love. Love wishes another's good. Love doesn't consume. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Love doesn't consume. Love is concerned for the good of another. Shechem wants to consume. Get me this girl for my wife. He sees and he takes, and he is used to getting what he wants. Now, why does he want to marry her? I don't know. He wants her. It also seems that maybe he's trying to erase the offense, legitimize the relationship in some way. But you can't legitimize this. Dinah has been violated in a way that cannot go unanswered. So let's look at the response. We're going to read a section of it, and I'm going to share 4 responses, because it can't go unanswered. Let's look at 4 responses that happened to this event. Genesis 34, verse 5. Now Jacob heard that he had defiled his daughter Dinah, but his sons were with his livestock in the field. So Jacob held his peace until they came. And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out to Jacob to speak with him. The sons of Jacob had come in from the field as soon as they heard of it, and the men were indignant and very angry because he had done an outrageous thing in Israel by lying with Jacob's daughter, for such a thing must not be done. But Hamor spoke with them, saying, "The soul of my son Shechem longs for your daughter. Please give her to him to be his wife. Make marriages with us. Give your daughters to us, and take our daughters for yourselves. You shall dwell with us, and the land shall be open to you. Dwell and trade in it, and get property in it." Shechem also said to her father and to her brothers, "Let me find favor in your eyes, and whatever you say to me I will give. Ask me for as great a bride price and gift as you will, and I will give whatever you say to me. Only give me the young woman to be my wife." Okay, so you notice Hamor in here, he works the situation like a politician. We're going to take advantage of the situation. You hear the saying all the time in politics, never let a good crisis go to waste. Hamor is all business. He's negotiating, all right? How do we make this advantageous to everybody here? Come and live and trade. land and daughters. We'll have yours, you have ours. Everybody wins. This is a great opportunity. You notice there's no admission of wrong, no apology. There's not even any talk of compensating the offense. This is just sweep the offense under the rug and let's work this to everybody's advantage. Shechem tries to buy his way out of trouble. You notice in there that he offered to pay any price because money talks. You get a sense that he's sweating a little bit. His dad's trying to work a deal, and perhaps Shechem is noticing the outrage in the face of these brothers, so he doesn't wait for Dad to finish the deal. He speaks up and sweetens it a little bit with some dollar incentive there. Hey, tell me the bride price and any additional gift, I'll pay whatever. I just want this girl to be my wife. Now, what he's offering is not restitution. This is not recompense for what he has taken. There's no talk of having done wrong. He's not trying to make things right. He's just giving the incentive to get what he wants. Dinah's brothers are rightfully angry. For such a thing must not be done. It's outrageous, they say. The word in Hebrew is used for particularly heinous acts. There is such a thing as righteous anger. They have it. They are righteously angry about this. It should not happen. It is outrageous. But what will they do with that anger? Jacob kept silent. The ESV says he held his peace. More literally, it's he kept silence. Now, what is that? Is it measured wisdom? Is that maturity speaking? Is it indifference? Does he not care? And this is the daughter of Leah, the unloved one. She is a daughter, not a son. Or is it fear? At this point in the story, we don't know. He kept silent. Those are the responses. Let's look at verse 13. The sons of Jacob answered Shechem and his father Hamor deceitfully because he had defiled their sister Dinah. They said to them, now this is pretense, it's acting, we cannot do this thing to give our sister to one who is uncircumcised, for that'd be a disgrace to us. Only on this condition will we agree with you, that you will become as we are, by every male among you being circumcised. Then we will give our daughters to you, and we will take your daughters to ourselves, and we will dwell with you and become one people. But if you will not listen to us and be circumcised, then we will take our daughter and we will be gone. Now, you notice what they're doing here. They're pretending that this is a workable situation. It is potentially advantageous to everyone. But there's a condition. If we're going to do this, if we're going to work out this situation, y'all are going to have to be circumcised. Circumcision was the special mark of God's covenant for the family of Abraham. Every male was to be circumcised at 8 days old. They're saying, so if we're going to live and dwell in the land, and our daughters and your daughters we're going to share, well, you're going to have to be circumcised. The key word in there is deceitfully. Verse 13. They don't really mean this. They're scheming. It also signals for us, who do we know that is a deceiver and a schemer? Jacob, and it's not his finer quality. And so already we're starting to go, okay, what they are up to is probably not the best thing to do with that anger. Verse 18, their words pleased Hamor and Hamor's son Shechem, and the young man did not delay to do the thing because he delighted in Jacob's daughter. Now he was the most honored of all his father's house. That is a scary thought right there. That guy is the most honored of his father's house. Anyway, so Hamor and his son Shechem came to the gate of their city. Did I skip? Where are we? There we go. So Hamor and his son Shechem came to the gate of their city and spoke to the men of their city, saying, these men are at peace with us. Let them dwell in the land and trade in it, for behold, the land is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters as wives, and let us give them our daughters. Only on this condition will the men agree to dwell with us to become one people, when every male among us is circumcised as they are circumcised. Let me tell you, that is not an easy sale. This is a surgical procedure that's very painful for adult men, especially without modern medication. And you notice how careful they are to sell it. They couch the painful bit of this with the incentives. And so you see the part about circumcision, which is there in verse 22. It's surrounded in verse 21 and 23 by the incentives. Their daughters, and they'll go on to say their property. In other words, let's think about what we gain, not just what we lose. Verse 23, will not their livestock, their property, and all their beasts be ours? Only let us agree with them, and they will dwell with us. And all who went out of the gate of the city listened to Hamor and his son Shechem, and every male was circumcised, all who went out of the gate of a city. Okay, so it made sense to them. They're going to do it. Now we come to the climax of the story. And you might be wondering, where's Dinah in all of this? All this is going on. Where's Dinah? Well, we're about to read that she's still in Shechem's house. I couldn't help but think, if you watched Liam Neeson, I couldn't help but think about Taken. Okay, this is something forcible that has happened to her. And what we're about to reads something like a Liam Neeson style rescue. Let's look at it. Verse 25. On the third day, when they were sore, two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, took their swords and came against the city while it felt secure and killed all the males. So the men of the city were incapacitated. They didn't stand a chance with two angry brothers, Simeon and Levi. I wonder why them? They're also sons of Leah. So in a family of half-brothers and full brothers, they are full brothers. And they're angry. So they go against the city. They killed all the males. Verse 26, they killed Hamor and his son Shechem with the sword and took Dinah, there's the rescue, out of Shechem's house and went away. The sons of Jacob, now, it could be that the other brothers join in at this point. It's not really clear. The sons of Jacob came upon the slain and plundered the city because they had defiled their sister. They took their flocks and their herds, their donkeys, whatever was in the city and in the field, all their wealth, all their little ones and their wives, all that was in the houses, they captured and plundered. Boy, it's kind of the way revenge goes, isn't it? We always take more. You notice that word in there, took? Same word that described Shechem, taking, seizing Dinah. Now they are taking, seizing herds, donkeys, wealth, little ones, wives. It's not right. This is not just a rescue. This is not even justice. It's retaliation. It's vengeance. It's unrestrained anger. It's the oppressed becoming just like the oppressor. So it's right when you get a little further in Genesis, Jacob is giving the blessing to his sons. And when he gets to Simeon and Levi, you remember what he says? Genesis 49:7, cursed be their anger, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. He says, I will divide Jacob and scatter them in Israel. Now, I just want to pause there and just comment on the biblical ethic, because that's what we're running into here. We need to think about, what does the Bible say that we're to do? So just a simple point here, personal vengeance is never just. We think it is sometimes. It feels right. Personal vengeance is never, there's a place for justice, but it's not personal vengeance. That's not the way that you get justice. Romans 12:19 and following says, Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it, you remember, to the wrath of God. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. In other words, God says, I deal justice. That's not your business. You don't personally go out and try to right that wrong by retaliating. That's not the way you bring about justice. Now, that doesn't mean justice doesn't get done. If you read on right into Romans 13, you'll see the next section talks about governing authorities. They are the avenger who carries out God's wrath. There is a role that government has in executing justice. So this is not forget a wrong happened and don't seek justice. It's recognize the appointed way that God sets up to bring about justice. Don't do it yourself. The Bible goes further, though. It isn't just don't avenge, it's actually do good to your enemies, right? Instead of getting back at a person, seek their good. That's radical, isn't it? It's not just don't retaliate. It's if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him something to drink. Again, Romans 12. Don't be overcome by evil. Overcome evil with good. Matthew 5, Jesus, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. Again, that is not to say don't seek justice. It's to say don't seek personal vengeance, and instead you cultivate a heart of love that actually seeks the good, even of the one who would wrong you. It's radical. Nothing at all like what we read in this story. Now, we haven't got to the resolution of the story. I want to look at that, but I'm going to warn you just a little bit. If you like stories to resolve nicely and neatly, you're not going to like this. It resolves with a question mark. Nobody likes that, right? We don't like things to resolve with a question mark. This one does. Genesis 34, verse 30. Then Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, "You have brought trouble on me by making me stink to the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites and the Perizzites. My numbers are few, and if they gather themselves against me and attack me, I shall be destroyed, both I and my household." But they said, "Should he treat our sister like a prostitute?" What's the answer? No. Absolutely no. It's implying, it's making very clear something needed to be done. They're calling out their dad and saying, we couldn't do nothing. But he's calling them out too. Jacob, he kept silent. He didn't say anything until the very end of this story. And then the only rebuke he has is for his sons. They weren't right to avenge. But was Jacob right to say nothing? I don't think so. I really like what commentator Derek Kidner says about this. He says, the appeaser and the avengers, that would be Jacob and his sons, mutually exasperated and swayed respectively by fear and fury, were perhaps equidistant from true justice. The sons are furious, they unleash revenge. That's not justice. Dad doesn't say anything, doesn't do anything. That's not justice either. It's a challenging text. Now, there's two things that are impressed on me in this story that I just want to end by reflecting with you for a minute. Two things I think this story leaves us with an impression of: the God-given responsibility of men and the God-given dignity of women. And I want to be clear, because you can reverse those. Women have responsibility too, and men have dignity too. And those are important messages, especially in a world where men are really being bashed today. I think we need to have a sermon where we talk about that in just the reverse. But this text underlines these two things: the God-given responsibility of men and the God-given dignity of women. Men are strong. Women are too, okay? But there's these compatible attributes of strength and beauty that you see in men and women. Men are stronger, and sometimes men don't use that right. They use it to abuse, to take advantage of the one who's weaker, and that is appalling. Your strength is to serve. You have a responsibility to use the strength God has given you to pursue what is right, to pursue justice, which means you bravely speak and you bravely act on behalf of others, especially the weak and defenseless. You use your strength to serve those around you and those put in your care, not weakened by fear, but neither overpowered by fury. You got to carry that responsibility in the way of Jesus. Not unleashing your wrath in uncontrolled ways, but not fearfully doing nothing either. You have responsibility for the people around you. And I would say in particular, I want you to think about the women in your life. You have strength for a reason. God-given responsibility. Do right with it. Unafraid, self-controlled. You women have great dignity. You're strong, but beauty would be the attribute that I think most shines in women. I love Psalm 96:6. It talks about strength and beauty in God's sanctuary. In other words, his attributes are strength and beauty. And you see those complementary attributes in the male and female image of God. Women are not less than men. We both together are made in the image of God, and we are different. There's something about men that has this strength really shines, and for women, it's their beauty. And we can't emphasize the external, but the hidden person of the heart. And that's what your responsibility is, to cultivate that hidden person of the heart. 1 Peter 1:3-4 talks about the imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit. Here's the part I want to highlight for you, which in God's sight is very precious. You think about that? The hidden person of your heart, women, young ladies, daughters, is very precious to God. I know sometimes in the world that's not communicated. Sometimes just the reverse is communicated. But in God's eyes, you're precious. And there's a unique dignity to you as women in the image of God. Your beauty is often objectified and demeaned by men who don't handle the responsibility that God has given them. It shouldn't be that way. Your beauty, who you are, your God-given dignity as women should be respected and honored. And I can't say that strongly enough. Especially, I think we need to say it to our young men. You need to hear it. These women are made in God's image. They should always be respected and honored with your speech, with your thoughts, with your actions. You have a responsibility to respect and honor them. Man, Genesis 34 is tough. It is all too common what happens in Genesis 34. It's all too common. It shouldn't be. It's absolutely appalling. If you were listening, you might have noticed God wasn't in the story. It's not mentioned one single time in that whole chapter. But it's really interesting that God's name actually brackets the story. If you look at the end of 34 and the beginning of 35, there's God. It's like bracketing this godless story. It's like it's telling us the truth about life, that sometimes in life it looks like a world that is not the way God designed it. It's a world as if God is not there. But he is, and he's always working. That's why it's bracketing the story. He's working in the story. He's moving it forward. There's another rescue. You know, we've got a rescue that should have happened, but it happened in some ungodly ways in here. But there's another rescue. One of Dinah's brothers, not Simeon or Levi, but the next one, also a son of Leah, is Judah. And through his line would come the Savior, Jesus, who would be the great rescuer and Savior, who would rescue us from sin and evil and death. But not just that, there was a special thing about this Savior and the way he regarded women. The way Jesus treated women has revolutionized the way women are often treated and regarded in our world. When you hear today an equality, anything that in America today, anything that talks about the equality of women, the importance of women, the value of women, whether anybody knows it or not, that came from Jesus. That came from the God who created man, male and female, both in the image of God. Well, that's a heavy topic. If you've got something you need prayers for tonight, or if you're not a Christian and you want to put Christ on in baptism, I invite you to the front while we stand and sing.